Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Unemployable podcast. Today we have a very special person that's came in. It's actually the personal consultant that Shannon and Carson use that do all their surveying. We've got Nadya Miller here from Hey H Survey, which is a surveying consultancy here on the Gold Coast. How are you, Nadia?
I'm well, thank you. And you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. We were talking off camera, and Nadia's got over 24 years experience. And like I said before, this is who Shannon and Carson have been using on most of their land developments for the last 6 years. So it's not just any surveying company. It's someone very special to Shannon and Carson that they've been using and have been making a lot of money with, and not only making money with, but also probably saving them a lot of money on making the right decisions on site. Carson, Shannon, as usual, thank you very much for being on here. For those of you guys that don't know who Shannon and Carson are, they are the other half of Unemployable Property. They are very successful land developers here, specifically on the Gold Coast and South Brisbane. They got over $100 million worth of land 4 years ago. One was a carpet cleaner, believe it or not, and the other one was running some excavation businesses and running an excavator himself as well. And to see where the journey that they've been on over the last 4 or 5 years has been absolutely extraordinary. And now we're teaching everyone else on how to do land subdivisions and what they're doing. And not only that, but they're sharing their consultants with us. That's the beauty with these guys is most developers hold their cards close to their chest and don't tell them who they use for town planners, who they use for engineers, who they use for surveyors. These guys are a lot different. And they've been nice enough to invite Nadya onto the podcast. Is this your first podcast, Nadya?
It is.
Amazing, amazing. So I guess we'll start off by getting to know you a little bit more, the background of AH Survey, and what you've been doing for the last 24 years in the surveying consultancy business. And then we'll dig deep into what you guys actually do and how you're helping Shannon and Carson on their projects.
Well, the company was originally, I actually got into it because my father is a surveyor, and he had a company called Andrews and Hanson, and I was working with him for most of that time. And recently, he's finally given himself the permission to retire, and
Good luck.
so I've taken over from that now.
Giving you the reins.
Yep, that's absolutely right. So we do all surveying tasks with our company: detail surveys, construction setouts, civil works setouts, all the titling, um, and it's just constant. That's what we're constantly doing. Is
Yeah, good.
uh,
So for those of you guys that drive around and see these construction workers setting up tripods and seeing these fancy pics on the blocks of land with little flags coming off of them, that's what Nadia does, right? Like, this is surveying, basically mapping out exactly what little piece of Australia that you actually own versus your neighbor.
that's right.
And I'm sure that we'll get into some really cool stories about neighbors fighting neighbors over, that 300 mil is mine, not yours. Your fence is on my property, and all these types of scenarios.
The disgruntled conversations the surveyors had to have on site.
Correct. So I guess for those who don't know, let's kind of peel the layers back. And what exactly does a surveyor do in a property development project? So let's talk to the brand new people that are learning about property development. They've been following Shannon and Carson for quite some time, but they're just starting to get an understanding. So
Yeah.
what does a surveyor do, and when are you involved in the project?
We're involved from the very start. You Before you can go and get a town planning application put together and submitted to the council, you need a survey to show the lay of the land. So you want to know what the contours are, what kind of features are on the site. You need to know what the drainage and the electrical and the NBN and all the services on a site. You need to know where all that is. You need to know if there's any problems with the surrounding, as you say, neighbours, whether there's any property features that are possibly hanging over your boundaries that you need to resolve first. So that's really when we would first get involved. And then that information will then get sent off to all the different other consultants for their designs. And it'll be people like hydraulic consultants, civil engineers, the electrical engineers, and the town planners, of course, will then compile all those reports from all of us, and then they will submit their planning application.
Yeah, it's very important, obviously, mapping out what is yours and what is not yours and making sure that you're building
That's right.
in the correct envelope. Because
That's right.
off camera, I overheard you talking to Shannon saying a long time ago, there's people that got caught building on land that wasn't even theirs.
Correct.
And that's what you don't want to be doing, right? That is obviously that's a long time ago.
It was a long
and that
time
probably
ago.
wouldn't happen today. You would think not. Definitely not an AH survey, that's for sure.
Absolutely not.
But I guess what makes Nadya different, guys, Shannon and Carson, you guys have obviously done a lot of different developments over the years. You've dealt with the good, the bad, and the ugly, as we've discussed on other podcasts, using different consultants. Why have you used Nadya for the last 6 years? What makes her different than other surveyors that you may have used in the past?
I think, go back a step, like the first project we ever got involved with, Nadya was already the surveyor. I think you'd already done some work. I think you'd done the survey for a 3-lot subdivision that we bought, which was the first subdivision me and Shannon got involved on. So there was that initial kind of involvement in the site, but I had no idea that. I thought surveyors, I don't even think I knew what a surveyor was, to be honest, but I think my only understanding of a surveyor was just the contours and what the slope of the land and the boundaries were. I had no idea that surveyors actually did help you through kind of ticking the boxes, if you like, of the what's called the plan ceiling, which is once you get your development approval from council, you've got all those conditions that got to be met. It's Nadya's job to kind of go through all those items with the plan ceiling team and council and make sure they're all ticked off. So they've got such a critical, like they're right at the front and they're right at the very end. It's only the solicitor in the last 7 to 10 days actually do the titles office once they get that tick of approval from council that yes, they have all been met, that you go off and then you're kind of 7 to 10 days away from getting your piece of paper to go settle the block. So I had no idea how critical it was, because if one of those little items get missed and you got to go, you're fully drawn on a loan and you're bleeding the money. And I've learnt to try to get Nadya involved earlier in the piece, because it's just been my own mismanagement of like going through thinking I've ticked all the actual boxes when you actually haven't. So it's actually critical, because like we'll be spending tens of thousands of dollars a week in holding costs it's our most recent project. So if one of those boxes aren't ticked, like it's going to be an expensive exercise. So having someone in your team that can be like, hey guys, these are the things that we need. And we've learnt to kind of go to Nadya early in the piece, go, what are the things that you need again? Hey, Mr. Engineer, hey, Mr. Bushfire, like whoever the pieces are, the electrical stuff, we need to make sure this is all happening, and you need to either yourself or a project manager to kind of run that, or a good planner as a development manager with Nadya to kind of make sure that's all there ready for her. And it's not Nadya's job to actually, like we've still say, hey Nadya, I want you to do this now. Like someone's still got to be that person. She doesn't do it off her own bat.
Yeah.
But it's such a critical person in your team to hopefully, do that as smoothly as possible.
Yeah. Sorry, didn't see you there. While you're here, actually, we've got a new coaching cohort that just opened up for the Unemployable Property Coaching Program, that you get taught on how to become a property developer. One-on-one coaching, bi-monthly coaching, and also events where we get a full coach bus with all the students and go to 6, 7 different development sites. When I say development sites, from 1 lot to 10 lots to 50 lots. You get to see exactly why we buy it, how we fund it, and also how you can do it yourself. The next day, we had an amazing event at the QT Hotel here on the Gold Coast where we had all of our consultants come in and teach everybody on what they're looking for with sites, what are the different trends, and how you can become a property developer yourself. Now you see me on the video, but who you're gonna be getting coached by is Shannon and Carson. Who's Shannon and Carson? 4 years ago, Carson was cleaning carpets. Shannon was a machine operator. Today, they're doing over $100 million worth of land deals. I know you're listening, and I know you want to take action. And if that's you, click on the link below or go to www.unemployableproperty.com.au and register your interest, and one of our team will reach out to you, and we'll see you on the next bus. Now get out of here. The plan sealing side to things is everything, isn't it? Really, like that's when you're getting your registrations, right? You're getting your titles, because without that, it doesn't matter what you've built. It doesn't matter, right? Until you have that, that's when it goes, all right, this is finished. I can now go and on sell this project, or I can go and settle this thing and recoup the funds and either, pay down debt, or, depending on if you're unencumbered or not, and then keep the property yourself and build something on it.
Exactly. And as Carson said, that's the most scary part for most developers, is that when it comes to the back end of the project, that's when you're up to your earballs in debt.
Mm.
And it's the interest rates and the interest charges are going to
Yeah.
absolutely kill you.
Yeah.
If you're not, I've got a situation, not one, many situations where things get missed, and it'll be 3, 4, 6 weeks for
Mhm.
them to try, on some projects, that might be $20,000 a week in interest
Mhm.
that people are scrambling to try and
Yeah.
redeem themselves and get something done. And unfortunately, there's processes that you have to follow to get some of these things over the line.
Yeah.
And there's no possible way to make them happen faster than 3 weeks.
How do you avoid that as a developer? Is there a checklist that you give a client, or is every project different? Like for someone that doesn't have the experience like Shannon and Carson, and they're fairly new, what should they be asking their surveyor, so that way they don't miss these things, right? Because the last thing you want to do is, hey, if I knew this 3 months ago, I would have got it for you then. How many times have we heard that?
Mm.
Right? And then all of a sudden you're at D-Day going, well, if I knew that, I would have got it sorted. Now I'm the one holding the ticket and the interest cost. So how does that work? Is there a checklist, or is it like what questions they should be asking?
Generally speaking, I think, I don't know that if I'm alone in this with surveyors, but generally speaking, when someone comes to me with a quote request asking me to get involved in the project, I will flag that stuff with them straight away.
Okay.
And I'll say, look, make sure you focus on this, 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 and this.
Mhm.
These are your really critical hold points that you need to be trying to target to try and make things run as smoothly as possible.
Yeah.
So I try and get onto that almost as soon as I'm engaged
Mm.
to do the work. So
So yeah, you're right on the front end of it, or you actually, Carson just mentioned right at the start and right at the end, but you're actually with us through the whole project as well. So
Yeah.
right from DA conditions, RFIs, like you said, all the individual contractors or consultants rather, you're talking to all of them as well. Civil engineer, electrical consultant, you're working with all of them. But even through the project, and to what you were asking before, we're a little bit different than some, because we're a developer civil contractor. We're a little bit different where we have our own base station, our own total station. We do a bit of stuff on site ourselves, but I'll never do a final structure on our own. I'll never do a concrete finishing. I'll never do the final road peg out. I'm not qualified or able to do that. So we do a lot of the earthworks with our own GPS, and we have checks and balances along the way. And we're actually at subgrade level now, where we just started bringing in gravel, input material for the roads. And we had one of your guys out on site yesterday, just checking heights, doing final survey on the road, making sure we're within tolerance. And we're starting to survey the site now, so picking up those final areas, so picking up the drains, picking up a lot of the finished surfaces.
What's the tolerance, Shan? Like that you
fuel
can be within roughly?
on the road on the finished product? It's like plus 5 mil, minus 10 on the road millimeters. And some of these roads are 700 meters long, and you can't have any more than that deflection over 25 meters. Well, it's got to be, it's got to be under a certain distance as well. You can't just have dips every meter. So you got a long distance and then a height difference in it
And
as
that's
well.
not a lot of tolerance, eh?
No.
No, not with a
And that's-
30-ton machine that you're trying to cut down to 5 millimeters.
So what happens if
That's why you got to be careful when you're using your GPS as well.
Mm.
Because sometimes GPS, you might only get 50 millimeters of accuracy out of it. So that's where you want to be doing your total stations setouts.
so
Yeah,
what's the
accurate.
difference between total station setouts and GPS?
The total station does, a GPS is all connected to the
Mhm.
GNSS.
Yeah.
Where,
Satellites.
yeah, your satellites. Whereas the total station is purely based on ground control.
Okay.
So it's all relative to itself.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're using the GPS, you're just winging around, just bouncing off the satellites all day. And depending on where you are, what kind of things are around you, what your sky coverage is like, all of those things can have a big impact. If you're standing next to a metal fence or standing next to a car,
Your
It-
power lines.
yeah, it can throw your accuracy way out. So that's where for bulk works and all that kind of thing, yeah, it's great, go for gold. But when you're talking about getting down to your tight tolerances, particularly with things like your sewer and your stormwater pipes, that's when you really want to be doing it with a ground control, not satellites.
And what happens, right, if you're off tolerance? Say you're off tolerance 20 mil plus 20, not the 5, and you've just poured 700 meters of, bitumen.
Or
Do
road.
they,
or
do they
put it-
make do they make you rip it up? Like, is that how?
I haven't,
strict
I haven't
it
been through the
gets?
process. Listen to Nadya ask that one.
Yeah, they can make you do some work to fix it up. Depends. So you've really got to give it to the engineers and let them make the call. Well, that's what we do. We just give it to the project engineer and say, this is what's happening. This is where it's at. What's your thoughts? Can you make it work? If they can't make it work, well,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Yeah.
but,
The live
I've seen some situations where they've made them rip pipes up and things like that because they're just not getting the full
that they need.
Yeah.
they need.
The liability.
who doesn't go uphill? So if you got it going the wrong way, we got one at the moment, like our Blamble Heights. Like we're trying to gravity feed it, and we had to do some potholing there recently. We couldn't even find the sewer hole because if we don't, because when you design your DA level, you've got your surface levels right, but we don't know the levels of one of the sewers we'd get to, one of them we couldn't, so we just made some assumptions for it. And then now we're doing the detailed design. We're like trying to find, because this sewer manhole's like 2 meters under all these trees and stuff that council just never maintained it.
Is
So
it in someone's property as well?
and
Is
it's
that
in
that one?
someone else's property, so there's an easement over it, but they sent a letter that we didn't go on their property to actually, this is when we did the original survey. We've got a little bit friendlier with them now and they've allowed us to go on site. But so these are the things that they are actually really critical, because if I can't gravity feed, then all of a sudden we're putting in a sewer pump. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars difference just by not getting that right. Or, okay, can we import a bit of fuel to then get the grades to work? Like if that's not right, like Nadya says, it's critical to the project. So it's not just like, oh, don't worry about it. It's like, no, literally the poo's not going to get to the home. Like it's, like we're in trouble here.
Yeah.
Ground pipe.
So like the liability that you guys hold is quite high, obviously. Like I could imagine like insurance purposes and stuff like that, because if you're out there pegging, these areas and then all of a sudden they're incorrect and these guys start pouring, who does that come back on?
Yeah, us, I guess.
Yeah.
That's why we have so many checks and balances that we do in our work as surveyors. We're we're professionals. It's our job to make sure that what we're doing is right.
So important, eh?
Yeah.
What are the top things that a surveyor is looking at when they're plotting land Like when you guys are on site, what are the main things you guys are looking for?
With regard to like design
Yeah.
purposes, yeah, generally speaking, it would mostly be the landform and the services. They're the most critical ones.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's every project's different. If we're focusing just on land developments like subdivisions, then
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be mostly landform and services. Um, we don't have CCTV cameras of our own, so we always get our clients to that. It's pretty much as Carson was saying just before. It's pretty much a standard thing now. Is that they want like condition reports of the pipes that you're trying to tap into,
Hmm.
so and locations of underground services. So you'll need a service locator to come out, pothole things so they can be accurately surveyed. And then we drop that onto our plans as well. But they're the most critical ones.
Council mapping aren't always accurate.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No. No. They can be meters out.
Yeah. Oh,
Meters.
we just had one of the ones we were potholing recently. On the plans we had it 1 meter inside our road reserve. So I made the stupid mistake of not getting the locator out there and just getting the vac truck, and we're just like, we'll just cut a 1 meter line, we'll find it. It was 2 meters inside the road, under the road. Yeah, and so we're cutting away, and I'm spending I think we burnt like $2,500 of this back truck.
I
So
remember that day.
yeah, it was fun. I came in here a bit cranky that day.
It wasn't happy.
But so I don't know where I was going with that, but it is critical.
They're the most important things that you're looking for when you're doing the detailed surveys for design purposes. If you're in town, because we do a lot of subdivisions in town as well, lots of infill developments. When we're doing those, then you start looking at whether you've got to survey the adjoining properties and their windows, and so that they can design around trying to keep a little bit of privacy and things like that as well.
Seen a few DA applications around with surveyors that have done the lot layout. Who do you think's best fitted to do, like, say, a lot layout for a subdivision? Like we typically use a civil engineer, but I see a lot of surveyors do it as well.
Oh yeah, I've done them too.
Yeah.
What's the
it's-
pros and cons in your eyes between using an engineer and the surveyor?
Don't be biased.
Oh, doing the layout itself is okay. I think that's fine, but sometimes it can, depending on what's happening with the servicing, it can affect what your lot layout is going to look like.
Yeah,
With-
as in like water,
Yeah.
hydraulics, where stormwater is going to run, all of that sort of.
Yeah, and your sewer as well.
Yeah.
Making sure that we've got enough fall through pipes and things like that.
Do you look at that stuff when you're doing the design?
Yeah, but I'm not, and I will never ever claim to be an expert in civil engineering. And I think we should all stay in our lane a little bit.
Yeah.
It's good to have a good general knowledge so that you know what to look out for and all that kind of thing. But personally, I think that we've all got, you were talking about in insurances before. I'm a registered consulting cadastral surveyor. I'm not a registered engineer, so I really shouldn't be getting involved in designing civil services. It's not. It's just
Yeah.
not right. I don't think.
Are some people doing that though?
Yeah, it does happen around the place. We steered off to civil engineers. Oh, we've always used civil engineer from design, for design, just for that purpose. We picked that up quite early. It's,
The little ones are okay. Like I help with layout. I always contribute to the decisions, and help come up with some ideas. And what about this? Have you thought of this option? But it should ultimately be, I believe, the engineer's decisions.
But
we've had some older, a lot larger ones, like Jim Boomba was originally designed by a surveyor. Down Lismore, that's a surveyor design as well. Those two projects. So
Well, down there, surveyors do subdivision design in New South Wales.
Yeah.
But not here so much.
And I think that's fine, especially with us. A lot of our sites are difficult, so a lot of the design is going to be heavily, to do with the constraints. So like the actual,
it has
the way the fall is going. So it's probably more engineering geared as opposed to let's just see how many blocks we can get out of this. And so there's a lot more things to consider, which an engineer is going to know more of. But on the flip side, the engineer's typically always out by 1 or 2 square meters, like at the end. Like, so if you're going to get the engineer, you still need your surveyor to then do your final kind of checks on that, because
your lot calcs. Yeah, absolutely.
they just can't get it quite as accurate. And I've made the mistake of going through and actually getting the not getting you to check, and then we get to the end of like, oh crap, I've just sold a block and we're 2 square meters out, and then there is a tolerance as well, but like, you just don't want to be making those little tweaks at the end.
Well, it does upset your buyer, and that you can always end up in a little bit of a tit for tat. So it's nice to have it right at the start. But you do have in a disclosure, you do have that a little bit of tolerance there. But regardless of whether it's a meter or 10 meters, you still got to do further statements.
So in that disclosure that you just mentioned, what is a disclosure, and what other things are in a disclosure, just to break that down a bit more? So when you're doing a disclosure plan, obviously you said that tolerance is in a disclosure. Is it just that tolerance, or you got other things written in there?
Oh, there are other things in the disclosure statement that the lawyers put together.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100% sure what goes into the legal side of that. I think I haven't really. It's mostly to do with the Land Sales Act.
Yeah.
Whatever's sort of in that will sort of specify what needs to go into it. But from a survey, from the documents that are submitted, it's usually going to be a survey plan, a disclosure plan that will show your contours, natural ground, your depth of fill contours, so it'll show whether there's fill on there or not, and your lot boundaries, and whether or not there's any easements, generally speaking, and retaining walls as well, sorry.
Yeah, and you mentioned before in certain areas, like seems like surveyors fill the role of a planner. Like in WA, for example, if you're doing like a simple subdivision, like even up to 10 lots, like a lot of the time the town planners aren't involved at all. It's just the surveyors doing all that work. Is there a reason why in different areas surveyors have kind of, I don't know if it's retreated or the town planners have just filled that void? Why is it different in different states that, you got?
Well, I haven't been for a while now, but I have done my fair share of small town planning applications, subdivisions and easement applications, and even a couple of small like second detached dwelling MCUs back when things were a little bit quiet. When was that? In the
GFC.
Yeah, the DFC. I sort of dabbled with some of the smaller things to help a few clients out. It's possible, but well, really, I think the main reason why most of us aren't really doing all that much of it these days is we're just too busy. Where there's that much work to do from a survey perspective that we haven't got time to get into it. But I mean, a lot of us are perfectly capable, I believe. But going back to that thing, stay in your lane sort of thing, I think, we're qualified as surveyors. We're not qualified as town planners or qualified as engineers. So I don't think
Yep, that's fair enough.
it's not that we can't do it. It's just that we, I think, choose not to.
That makes sense. When you get your initial survey done on the site, when do you recommend you actually get the boundaries pegged? Because you can do your your general contour survey, but without putting in the boundary pegs sometimes. Where have you seen it go wrong when it comes to boundaries? Because there's a lot of obviously boundary disputes, and I've seen fences that are literally up. You would have seen it 10 times more than me, like a meter inside someone else, or vice versa the other way, and you've gone and bought this piece of dirt, not knowing that, because it's an easy conversation when it's 1 meter the other way, but when the fence is 1 meter, on your block, and you've got to have that, conversation, and they think that that's their land. Like, when do you recommend people? Do you think everyone should just get the lots pegged out with and stumps knocked in at that first initial survey, or?
Oh, it's a bit of a tough one, right? Because a lot of the time, some of the sites, the cost of a survey like that can be pretty high. But the way property prices are now, it's probably prudent to have an identification survey done before you even buy it to make sure that there's no encroachments, to make sure that there's nothing, that the fencing's in the right spot. Because, yeah, as you say, almost every fence is not truly in the right spot.
I've had that on a development in the past where, I've had a surveyor come out, pegged it out, and literally their fence is past the boundary. Not by a lot,
Yeah.
but by enough. Like if I were to actually measure it out
Yeah.
along the whole block, and it was not a cheap block, there'll be some thousands of dollars. It won't be tens of thousands, but it'll probably be,
Yeah.
maybe tens of thousands. But again, I didn't approach the neighbor on it because it's like, I just looked at it and it's this concrete wall that I'm going to need as well that's subdividing it. Then they've got driveways that already butt up to it. And like, I'm just like sidewalks, and I'm just like, this is going to take time. Time is money. Dispute. This could be a 3-month extravaganza when I can have this house knocked down already and frames going up, in that time frame. So sometimes I guess you got to pick your battles, but I definitely agree. Like even the way things are built now, the way the fences are built, or I shouldn't say the way they are built now, the way they were built, because obviously now the better technology we have, new land subdivisions, and you're not going to have an issue. But it's all these old subdivisions that were done 30 years ago,
Yeah.
40 years ago,
Yeah.
that were done by eye. Close one eye open, with a bit of a measuring tape going, yeah, that looks about right.
But even now, you'll go and look at a site and you're like, oh, they've got these beautiful new fences. They must have had a survey. Well, not always. Not always. They might just knock the fences over, go, oh yeah, there's where the post was. I'll just put my new post straight in that same hole. So they're just carrying on a legacy of a
What was there already?
fence that was always in the wrong spot. So it's not the wisest thing to do. So it might be that you're going to spend a few grand on a survey, but when you think about it, most properties, what are they? Even just in town, just out the back, in the back docks of suburbia, the blocks of land are $800,000, $900,000 now. For a couple of grand to know that you're not buying or inheriting any problems, it's probably a smart thing to do.
Oh, for sure. We had it happen on our personal property at home. But we purchased a property, didn't give that any thought. What did we buy there about 8 years ago? The driveway set what I thought was over close to the boundary on one side. And when we went to do a renovation, we had to do a building approval. And to do the building approval, we had to do a set out. Then when we did the set out, I found that we actually owned about 8 to 10 metres further on one side of our property. It's on acreage, so about 8,000 squares the property is. But I was pretty happy. So we gained a lot of room on one side. I actually put a shed in that area now. The neighbour's property, the neighbour's shed, their little garden shed is actually 70 mil within our property. And then down the back, they had a whole, we didn't even know it was ours. They had a whole dog pen that was probably 4 metres wide and 6 metres deep that was actually well within the whole lot was in our property. So, and that was, like you said, just remnant. That's how it's always been. So it just kept living on.
And sometimes, particularly on the big blocks or even in town, some people just get along with their neighbours and they couldn't care less. But then there's the others that,
Yeah, correct.
so if someone said to me at my house, for example, oh, that fence is 100 millimeters, I'd go, I don't care, leave it. Doesn't worry me. It's only a fence.
Yeah.
The question I have,
But if in the case where you're trying to design up to the boundary, with, like, say you want to put a new garage and you need absolutely the most land that you can, well, that could be the difference between getting your approval or not.
Yeah.
And that's when it makes sense, right, to actually do that, because how does it play out when it is wrong and someone's like, I'm not moving it? Like, I'm sure you've done this, you've seen this happen like multiple times, and I So if someone's stubborn that they know my fence is in the right spot, do they get their surveyor, you get your surveyor, and then council come out? Like, how does it play out?
No, council doesn't get involved in fencing disputes. It's a legal thing. It
Right.
goes through the courts. Oh, QCAT.
Right.
You go to QCAT over it.
And that's the issue,
And
right?
then you're spending more on lawyers' fees and
Time and
time and fights, and then everyone's cranky and upset and they get stressed out. And there's been situations I know of where people get aggressive.
Yep.
And it can get
Right.
really gnarly.
next thing you know,
And-
people are missing over 200 mil worth of land.
Yeah, you don't want to be next to one of his sites.
No.
The question I have for Shannon is the dog pen still in your land?
No, it's a blessing in disguise, actually. When we did our renovation, the neighbours were selling at the same time. So we actually pegged the property as the new buyers were coming in.
Oh,
So
perfect.
they came in and basically looked at the pegs before they went unconditional and come over and seen us and said, is the shed going to be a problem? Do I need to knock it down? Of course not. It's fine.
The 70 mil one.
Yeah.
But
So
get rid of your dogs and your dog pen.
the old owner removed them on the way out as part of their...
No,
So,
I just
yeah,
playing.
it worked out really well in our case, thankfully.
Are there common mistakes that developers make when assessing a site that could be avoided by using a surveyor, you think? And they're trying kind of dodge the $3,000 and
Yeah, well, I guess the boundaries can be a thing. Yeah, I guess with your relying on historical data can be sometimes a bit of a problem as well. Say, say they go and get and this is more generalized, but not so much with the big sites because a lot of the time they aren't really touched. But
Yeah.
say, for example, you want to do a little 1 into 2 lot subdivision in town. They'll say, oh, I had a survey done 15 years ago. And then they might go and use that. And little do they know that, someone's come through and ripped up and replaced the electrical cabling. Someone's redone all the stormwater pits out the front. None of that would be shown on a 15-year-old. It might not be shown on the old plan. And that can affect the cost of what you're proposing to do. So I think making sure that you get a current survey is probably the critical thing for that from a development point of view. Like in the case of, say, the bigger sites like these guys' sites, a lot of the time you can use some LiDAR, which is the photogrammetry and photogrammetry contours, which is flown by a plane, or a drone survey. Those are usually they're not too bad. But once again, it's all about making sure it's the age of the data that you're using, making sure that it's still current, that somebody previous to you hasn't come in and done some earthworks and changed things.
LiDAR and drone, it has its place to be used.
Absolutely.
But once you start to get into detail, like maybe for initial layout to get an idea on contours and whatnot, it's good for that.
Flood
But once
modeling, all that kind of stuff, it's handy for all of that.
I've
Absolutely.
seen it severely go wrong, mainly around the mining space, when they're scoping up projects, do a lot of LiDAR, and they've done flyovers of hundreds of hectares, worked out cut fill volumes and bits and pieces, and they're 300 mil out, so the volumes are severely wrong. So yeah, when you get closer, it's got its place to be used, but when you get closer doing detailed design, you definitely want to be surveying stuff,
Yeah,
doing
correct.
it properly, boots on the ground.
Yeah, it's good for sort of generalized scoping, for generalized sort of planning, but it's definitely not good for detailed design, as you say.
But even for like some of our sites where it's you can't even get in there with a surveyor, like across the road at Hawkins, it's like all bush,
Yeah,
trying
you
to
can't use it.
or like the 130 acres we got down in Ganella, you've got all down the back and it's sloping. Are you gonna, like it's to run a drone over that is going to be so much more cost effective. And then once you've got it approved and some of it's cleared, then you can go back and do some more detailed design. But it's just trying to get
That's right. Just getting those concepts, it's good. But you got to remember, it depends on what's under the, if
Canopy.
you've got 2 meters of neck-high nutgrass or something,
Mm.
that's going to really throw those levels out.
Mm.
But so yeah, you got to be sort of there's applications for all this new technology that we've got. Some of it's amazing and it can really save a lot of time.
Mm.
But you just got to make sure that whoever's using it really understands the capabilities and its limitations.
Yeah.
How often do surveyors interact with like architects and engineers and councils? Obviously, you guys come out, you do the initial, setting of the boundary and stuff like that. But how often are you guys interacting with them on the life of a development? Where do you guys kind of come in and out?
Every day.
Mm.
We're constantly working with architects because they're designing, with the architects, when we're doing high-rise work, we do high-rise set-outs and things, they're constantly changing plans. We're working with them every day, making sure that we got the current designs. So yeah, every day of the week, just about, we're working with architects. But yeah, what was the other one? Sorry.
No, that was it. Yeah.
Oh,
Now you said high rise and whatnot. So what type of developments are you guys currently working on? Like what do you guys do and what don't you do?
yeah, we're working on high rises at the couple of those. Well, not super high. I'm doing the titling on some super high ones,
Okay.
30-story ones. But the construction side of it, we're 10 to 15-story ones we can do. We'll do. And we do all the set out work for all the concrete pours and the wall, tilt panels, all that kind of thing. So we'll be there every couple of weeks setting out, or every week, depends on the project, how fast it's moving.
What would you say is the average plan sealing time frame? And and does it range dramatically from council to council?
Yes.
So you give us a ballpark, like in Southeast Queensland, like what's the best councils, and what, just some ballpark timeframes?
Do I have to say which ones?
No, you don't.
Do
No.
Oh, look.
From worst to best, then, just in Southeast Queensland, like what was the range?
Look, it's if you can provide the correct evidence for each of the conditions in the approval, whether it be reconfiguration of a lot approval or your material change of use approval for your high rises. If I can provide to the council the appropriate certificates and proof that every item's been attended to how they want, it'll go really quick. They have 20 business days statutory timeframe, which means that they are allowed to take up to 20 business days to assess a plan sealing application. Now, some of them seem to forget about that one and take a lot longer. Others are really, really quick. So the last few things that I've put through with Logan Council have been super fast, super fast. The one
What's super fast, roughly?
because they do it differently at Logan. They do what they call a preliminary plan sealing application first, which means that I could just about lodge a draft survey plan as soon as you get your DA, almost, and lodge that and say this is what we're going to do, and they come back to us and say, yeah, you need to give us this, and this.
How good is that?
When we give it to them, it might be 5 days.
Should we do that now?
Yeah. We need to do that now.
Yeah, we could. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then say Gold Coast, it's same again, provided everything's been done to how they want. 10 days. Depends on the project though. It depends on how much work's in, how many applications are in at the time, how thin their inspectors are on the ground at the time as well. But generally speaking, yeah, between 2 and 3 weeks with Gold Coast. Scenic Rim.
Have a breath.
To take a deep breath, eh?
Oh, I don't seem to have any success getting them out any quicker than 4 at the best.
Wow.
Um,
It's good to
but
know though, right?
you know,
Because
they're just
you got to build this stuff into your feasibility, right?
they're
That's why I'm asking. Yeah,
understaffed, so
Mm.
it takes a long time.
it's across the board with all of their consultants. So it's not just that. I don't think that's just a surveying plan sealing thing. That's across the board. I
Yeah.
think that's been
Engineering,
struggling a bit.
planning team.
Everybody's struggling with staffing.
Mm.
It's the nature of the beast these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, most of our Southeast Queensland councils do turn things around in a reasonable time frame, I think.
And there are fast tracks in some areas as well, is there, or not really?
Yeah, it doesn't really make a difference. I know Logan does that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't believe it makes all that much of a difference.
Yeah.
I have spoken to the plant sealing department about that, and they said, "Oh, if you're still giving us everything, we turn it out quick anyway.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you ever
We don't
find
have to take as much responsibility." Because what happens with those fast track ones, particularly with Logan, is they want the lodger to take the responsibility that the things that are being submitted are correct. Um, and that means I would have to accept responsibility if, say, an engineering certificate's a bit shady or something, or it's not quite been prepared in the right way. It comes on to us. If something goes wrong in the future, they put it back to you.
Mm.
So that's the way it was explained to me anyways.
Mm.
If it's not going to make a difference with the time frame, why would I want to take that responsibility?
Yeah, you start to build a reputation for yourself in there. Anyway, they know you're lodging something, so it's generally of good quality. They'll look at it a bit quicker and
Yeah,
know what they're
correct.
looking at
Yeah.
is good content.
I've got a good relationship with pretty much all of the councils around the place down here. Yeah.
Do you find that many of the conditions repeatedly are ones that always, where do developers go wrong at the end? Are there certain conditions that are not met regularly? Is
No.
there a common one or a,
Well, every council's got different conditions, but say, for example, if we're talking about, generally speaking, it's not so much the DA, like the ROL or the MCU conditions that are the problem. It's generally speaking, it's the operational works ones that that slow you right down, because if they aren't attended to first, we can't lodge our plant sealing applications, or if we do, it'll just sit there until those things are resolved. So those timeframes of 20 business days gone instantly. So it'll be things like with your operational works for civils, for example, you need to have everything. Your as constructed surveys need to have been lodged or provided to the engineers. They need to do their assessment, certify it, lodge it as their for their final engineering certification. And that stuff there is where it will go.
Yeah.
Time frame.
So they want everything backing them up as well, concrete testing, geotechnical testing, all sorts of things. They need to back up their certificate.
The other thing that people forget a lot is when it comes to your environmental or landscaping conditions, you need those are operational works applications as well. And a lot of the time, those have got hold points through it that have been specified by the council. So you need to have a pre-clearing inspection, and the council has to come out and do it. Then you have to have a post-clearing. Then you have to have this, and then you have to have that. And those are often forgotten about, or they'll do one or two and then forget one, and then they get to the end of the project, like, what have I done? I've forgotten. And same again, because council won't give their okay or their sign off on those conditions if those inspections haven't been completed. So that's one that often gets forgotten as well. Veg clearing and things like that.
Yeah, and so you mentioned ASCON before. Can you explain to people what ASCON is? Because
As
I had
constructed.
yeah. So when are you doing that, and is it as simple as the engineers designed it and you're coming out to check that it's been built to that design level? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's it. That's all it is. But it's also about making sure that the materials that are being used are correct, what was part of the design. The pipe diameters are the right, they're the right size pipes. They're the right materials that are being laid on, like the right type of curb line, the right, all of that civil design. Some areas you guys had a couple where it's just the flat concrete edging on the side of the
Yeah.
road. Then there's been others where you've got to do a proper rollback curb, or there's, the square gutters, all that kind of thing. Making sure that the crossfalls are correct on the pavement. There's basically anything that's been designed has to be certified. Oh, it's got to be surveyed by us. We certify that we've surveyed it accurately, and then we hand that over to the engineers, and then they have to certify that everything's been built as per their designs. And in the occasion where it's not, or you've got to site and hit rock and let's come up with an alternative solution, then they've got to do an alternative solution, probably lodge a minor change application, and then they'll certify that it's been built as according to the minor change or something like that.
And at the end of the project, you've got to have a bond typically for your construction and your landscape. And this might be out of your pay grade, but the bonding side of things, if there's a condition that's not met and it's not, say, landscaping, which might be one that you can bond, which is what we're doing on this
You're
most
talking about
recent.
uncompleted works.
Correct. So
Yeah,
are
so
there?
there's all different sorts of bonds.
Yep.
There's a performance bond, maintenance bond, uncompleted works bond. So you're talking about the uncompleted works?
Yeah. So is there any particular conditions that you can just, if we haven't met it, can we just bond that and then we'll sort that out later? Like, are there other items besides the more obvious ones of, say, landscaping, for example, that can't be done because it's too rainy and we don't want to hold up the plan ceiling? And, so for example, for people playing at home, we've got our trees keep getting smashed when builders come in and bits and pieces. So we've agreed with council that they will allow us to put the 45 litre or 100 litre street trees in 6 months after plan sealing. So we've got that email, which I'm sure you will need to then go, because the plan sealing team probably hasn't heard this, so you'll need that. So are there other items you can bond that might not be so obvious?
It depends on the council, actually, on what you will and won't be able to do. For the Gold Coast, generally speaking, it'll be your vegetation management, landscaping, and sometimes you can bond some verge work, but you can't bond sewer and water connections. You can't bond vehicle crossovers, which is the driveway as far as it relates to the road reserve. A lot of the time they won't let you bond the internal driveways either. But it seems to be a little bit site specific with regard to some of those other ones. And then obviously also councils. It varies from council to council what you can and can't put through under a uncompleted works bond. There's no hard and fast rule, I don't think.
What I love about like the property development space and working with all the different consultants, because you'll be listening to this, there's a lot of information being thrown around here, right? And you're one consultant or surveyor. And you need to know, like in my opinion, enough as the developer. You need to know, depending on what level you're at, you need to know enough to be dangerous, but you don't have to be an expert in every area. Because the reality is you guys as consultants are all working together on a daily, weekly basis, and we're CC'd in the emails, right? But the reality is most of the time it's the consultants discussing amongst each other and making decisions based on, hey, what do you guys think? And a lot of these decisions, the developer isn't involved in a lot of that detail. Do you guys find the same in what you guys are doing? I know in the smaller built form stuff, like we just had an RFI and a couple basic things that you can really understand in layman's terms. But a lot of the consultants are just going bang, 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 back and forth. Yeah, we could change that. Yeah, that's no problem. Okay. Engineer, does that affect anything you need to do? No. Hey, landscaper, a bit more deep soil planting over here. That's okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Get it done. You know what I mean? Like that's how quick it's done within a 15-minute email trail. And all I've had to do is go, yes, understand, approve, go ahead.
Yeah.
With you guys, with the bigger sites, with the land subdivisions, is it similar, or are you guys like in the detail with the consultants on every decision?
We're definitely in the detail with the civil engineer, but a lot of it's not in our control. It's more from an understanding or seeing if there's a different way of doing something from a constructability purpose, or to try and we were talking about it before off camera, the project we're in at the moment, Stage 2, we anticipated we'd be building them fairly close together or at the same time. So one, we've got a surplus of 40,000 cubic metres to move. The other one needs 40,000 cubic metres. Now they're being built at separate times, so we're trying to wash that 40,000 cubic metres out over the project. The engineer's done his design, which is really good design, but he still left that in there as an export off site, which I don't want to move. So now we're going to raise all the house pads. We're going to try and raise some of the internal roads to get rid of that 40,000 cube on site because it's a cheaper exercise.
Yeah, make it disappear on site.
we'll
Move it
probably
around on
say-
site rather than take it off.
Yeah, but we're tied otherwise. Like the hydraulic modelling is a hydraulic modelling, the fire, your fire offsets and whatnot, or the fire offsets, you can't do a lot with them. Your environmental overlays, you've got to work within them. So a lot of it's actually outside of our control, and we're just working with it, getting the different disciplines to work.
But that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, there's a big 40,000 cube that's got to go off site. That's not a cheap exercise. It's not a 10. So you've got to. I mean, Shannon's a little bit different because he's got the brain to actually be dangerous and ask good questions. Like, I'm a little bit special. So my job is just to know the Nadyas of the world and the Jasons, our engineers, and just put them in a room and go, all right,
Correct.
guys.
And
you just got to nudge each one and kind of ask enough good questions. But at the same time, these guys are experts in their own field. And if you don't have that, get your town planner to be a development manager if they've got that skill set, or bring in a project manager. Like, the thing about property development, there's an expert for every single area. And if you get stuck, you can still pay someone to come in and be that expert. That's what I love about it. As long as enough fat, your job as a developer is to find a deal that's got enough fat in it to afford everyone.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, like, you don't need to be an expert at everything. But that's why I want to bring Nadya on, because you still need to know enough. Because, like, I guess I want everyone's take-home message to be, oh, crap, I need to get a hold of Nadya earlier in the piece, not just wait until the civil contractor says I'm done now. And now I think the next step is to go talk to Nadya. It's like, no, come back here and you'll save yourself potentially tens of thousands of dollars just by getting her engaged earlier in the piece.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the other thing that the guys sort of have touched on but haven't said explicitly is you want all these consultants to have a good relationship as well. If somebody says to you, go and use these people. They're good. They know what they're doing. I work with them all the time. I'm comfortable with them. Take their word for it. Because oftentimes, I've got one project drive me nuts because this guy says to me, oh, I need you to do a survey. So I've done the survey. And I said, righto, how are you tracking with all your certificates? Oh, what do I need? So I tell him, and he goes, okay, who do I need to use for that? And I gave him an electrical engineer. I gave him a lawyer. I gave him somebody else. Did he use the people that I said? No. 12 months later, I'm still sitting there with the survey plan ready to lodge with no documents because he refused to use the people that he thought he was doing himself a favour by saving himself a little bit of money, but in the long run, it's cost him far more because he's fiddled around and his time frame's totally blown out.
Yeah. And that was leading to one of my next questions. Like, what advice would you give, a first-time property developer about working with surveyors? Like, what questions should they be asking? Because not everyone is going to listen to this podcast, and not everyone is going to reach out to Nadya at AH Surveys, as an example, right? So what are some questions, if any, or anything that you can give that first-time property developer that may listen to this, may not listen to this? Just what questions would you ask so they don't run into trouble? Because I know Carson, initially thought he had an amazing town planner until he found out he was a very average town planner. But like, what were some questions, if I was talking to a town planner, what questions would you ask so that way you're dealing with someone that's reputable or not? Just because I've been around for 24 years doesn't mean you're amazing. It means that you could have been dodging and weaving for 24 years and doing a half-decent job. But is there anything deeper that people can ask?
Well, I guess the main thing to ask would be that explain that you want somebody to take it from the start to the end. A lot of the time, if somebody's in a bit of a rush, they might just say, oh, I've got my town planners told me I need to get a survey. And the surveyor will say, what are you doing? And say, oh, they're putting together a planning application for a subdivision. Sometimes if you don't, I guess if you're not explicit or if somebody's in a rush, they just see that as, oh, they just need a detail survey.
Mm.
But you actually need the detail survey. Depending on what needs to happen, you might need set outs, you might need a subdivision, you might need a building format plan for a strata title. There's a lot more to it. So just say if you're talking to a surveyor first time over, just say, look, I need a surveyor that'll take it from the start to the finish.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good start. And a lot of the surveyors that I know around the coast, everyone's really lovely and everyone will really try their hardest to help you out.
Yeah.
But not all of them do plan sealing as well, right?
Well, I guess it depends if you're using a cadastral surveyor or not. Probably if you're just using like say an engineering surveyor, not all of those guys would be getting into like titling and stuff like that. They would more focus on civil works and things like that.
I'll just add to that quickly. What I'd say is if you're a developer doing something and you're bringing in a contractor to do your works, keep a budget in there to have the surveyor with you as well on your side.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get a contractor in, a lot of them will advise they can do their own works or use their own surveyors. And definitely keep your own surveyor in your back pocket because you're going to have them right from the start at DA. You want to verify the work that's been done all the way through because you don't want to be sitting at the end with something that's not right because it was built wrong. And your surveyor at the back end is going to help you do the plan sealing anyway. So make sure you have a budget in there to keep them and verify and get the contractor in line.
And that was my next
A
question.
lot of civil contracting companies around the place have surveyors on staff. But yeah, I guess it will probably be very much specific to the different contractors as well.
When it comes to budget, you mentioned budget, Shannon. Now, obviously, every development is different. But if you're dealing with a first-time property developer and they're doing a 1 into 2 or a 1 into 4 kind of subdivision, something small, nothing like what these guys are doing at the moment, what's some of the budgets people should be putting into their FISO for surveying, as an example? Like you said, for a few grand, you could get your boundaries, set up at the beginning, as an example. How much more costs are there involved? For instance, plan sealing for 4 lots, give or take. This isn't, we're not going to hold you to this and the rest of it. But is it a 5 grand? Is it 10 grand? Is it 15 grand? Is it 20 grand? Just
And the hard answer to that's the hard question to answer because it really depends on where it is. And a lot of people think we just come out there and go, there's the boundary.
Yeah.
Let's whack a peg in there. But there's a lot more to it than that. In some cases, we might have to survey halfway up and down the bloody street.
Yeah.
Round the back, do a big lappy. Some of the survey plans we've drawn have been huge, massive for a 2-lot sub.
Wow.
And some of them have been up in the $15,000 mark for a 2-lot subdivision plan. But then others in town, in a newer area, like in Coomera or Pitlar or something, they might only cost 5.
Yeah.
So it's really it's very, very much site specific.
Yeah.
Depending on how old the survey information is in the area.
Scenic rim, 50 grand.
No area. So good.
Some of the hardest parts are places are like it's getting better, but parts of Brisbane are really hard because there's such old areas. There might not have been a survey done there for 60 years in parts of Brisbane. So you have to go further and further and further to find original survey marks.
How can someone find that out, right? Like if I'm buying a block of land in an old part of, Brisbane, Clayfield or wherever, right? Like 5 grand and 20 grand as an example is a big difference, right? Is it just reaching out to the surveyor and going, hey guys, here's my block of land. This is what I need done. I need a quote. And you guys just go up front and just get a quote done. Is that probably the best way?
Yeah. And then even if you just say, look, can you give me a bit of a ballpark estimate? that helps as well.
Yeah.
You know, some of the bush jobs can be,
Yeah.
a lot of the time with the bush jobs, we just have to give a budget estimate of 10 to 30,000, you know,
Yeah.
depending on the site, because, you know, say Springbrook, for example, you might need to bloody abseil
Just
to,
fine markers.
just to find some boundary. We don't abseil.
Yeah.
That was a joke, but
Yeah.
but you know, so it's really very much that we will have a look at what we can see on just the public record before we start buying things, whether there's been any surveys recent
Yeah.
in the last 10, 15 years, and that'll give us a bit of a
That'll give-
guideline of what we've
Yeah.
got to work with when we get out there and start digging up survey marks.
So, moral of the story, don't engage any consultant, right? Unless you have a very, very good relationship with them and you've used them over the years. But if you're first time property developer, even if you get referred work, just make sure you're getting quotes and updating your feasibility. Because the last thing you want to be is on a tight feasibility and all of a sudden you're 30 grand out on your consultant fees because you're trying to, you know, go in lean, and then all of a sudden, you know, it affects
Yeah.
that profitability and you get surprises.
As this is a bit of a thing you say here off camera. We were talking about some of those unexpecteds as well, like you're going along merrily doing your earthworks, and then boom, you hit rock, and it can change. It can change in an instant how much that work is going to cost.
Yeah.
And it can be significant.
Yep.
Can't it? So
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So you need to have some allowances in there to cover those unexpecteds for sure.
Nadya, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you? Obviously, I think we mentioned this off camera, or it might have been on camera. I forget now. But you mentioned how you only have a work phone because you had one phone call from a developer at a crazy time, and you said, never again. I don't even think Shannon and Carson have your personal mobile number,
No.
Been trying a long time.
right? Which is pretty cool. You must be very good if they can't get in contact with you.
I'm a tough cookie when it comes to that. As it is, I work most weekends, so
Yeah,
I need to try and have a little bit of
Your own
off
time.
Yeah.
What's the best way if
but
people get in
just-
contact
just
with
call the
AH Survey?
office. Yeah, just call the office.
So
if-
Google AH Survey website. Go to their.
Yeah,
What's the
website.
office? What's the office
The
number?
website hasn't been updated in a while, so it's still in our former company name, which is Andrews and Hanson. but
That's when you know you get a lot of work that you don't have to worry about updating your website. Huh?
yeah, correct.
That's when you know you're good.
Yeah, I know. It's a legacy, right?
It is.
So everyone's always called us AH.
Yeah.
I just formalized it.
Yeah.
So yeah, Andrews and Hanson or AH Survey, you'll get through to us. I've got a great team. Everyone who works with us is good.
Yeah.
They're nice. We're a good bunch of people, and yeah, we're happy to help when it comes to
Yeah.
developments.
Thank you for so much for coming on, and for Shannon and Carson to invite you. Like I said before at the beginning of the pod, it's not all the time that you have developers that are that open, that are just exposing their whole team to the world, basically, and anyone that wants to listen.
Yeah.
These guys are doing amazing things, and obviously for them using you for the last 6 years says something about you and your company as well. So congratulations on the success
Thank
that you guys have been having.
Thank you. I've got to say as well that the team that these guys have got behind them are people that I've been working with for a really long time as well.
Yeah.
Their lawyer, their engineer, and truly the people that the team that they've got are fantastic.
Yeah.
And I would work with them every day of the week.
And that's, you heard it here, guys, right? Like, that's very, very, very important. It's not just about saving $1,000 here, $5,000 there. Time is everything, and people working cohesively together to get these projects over the line. Because let me tell you, interest is one of the biggest costs that you will run into if you're trying to save some time up front and, a few grand here or there. And then all of a sudden you're like this guy that you mentioned, 12 months, and you're still sitting there with no registrations in hand because obviously he hasn't probably used the best consultants. So don't make that mistake. And that's why these guys are bringing on these consultants, because that's how passionate they are, is to make sure that you guys follow suit and kind of with the successes they've had. So Carson, Shannon, thank you very much for coming on as always. Thank you for showing up on time, Shannon, today. Thank you. The first podcast, he was late, so
I was worried.
have to mention it
I was
again.
worried I was going to go from unemployable to unemployed.
And Nadia, thank you very much as well for your
Thanks for
time.
having me.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Guys, subscribe, like, comment. The most important is subscribe and share the content that we are doing. We just want to benefit you guys, so that way you guys don't make the mistakes we used to make back in our early development days. And yeah, just want you guys to succeed in what you guys are doing. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for your time, and we'll see you on the next one.
Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Unemployable. If you'd like to watch another episode, just click there.